Hello and welcome to the program. I am DEJI360. Now, the big news in the country's political sphere right now is that the ruling All Progressives Congress has pegged its presidential nomination form at 100 million naira, while the governorship nomination form will go for 50 million naira. The price for nomination forms for State House of Assembly was pegged at 2 million, House of Representatives is 10 million, and that for the Senate is 20 million. And while the party approved free nomination forms for women and persons with disabilities, while persons under the age of 40 will get a 50% discount on the nomination forms. Now, the party announced its decision at the just concluded National Executive Committee meeting in Abuja, which was graced by President Muhammadu Buhari and, of course, the Vice President. However, the biggest talking point from that meeting has been the 100 million naira that the party placed on its nomination form for its presidential ticket. People have been talking about it, and there have been argument that it does not reflect the economic reality in the country, especially considering the high poverty rate among Nigerians and the high cost of living. And there've also been argument that it will definitely put a restriction on those willing to participate in the political process. However, the party has also fixed dates for its primary elections across board, but it failed to disclose if it would be zoning its presidential ticket or not, thereby leaving its forms open for all to buy. Now, let's hear from the horse's mouth. I'm now being joined on the program by Mr. Felix Moka, who is the APC's Publicity Secretary. That's the National Publicity Secretary. Mr. Moka, thank you very much for joining us on the program. And let me start off by asking, why did your party decide to peg your expression of interest and nomination forms now for your presidential ticket? Why did you peg that at 100 million naira?
Thank you very much for having me. Well, the party believes that the figures we have posted for expression of interest forms and the nomination forms are quite reasonable and justified. Yes, I hear all the discussions, and those are legitimate questions that people have asked about some of the reasons behind that. But we are a party of about 45 million members. By this free structure, we are also trying to evolve a culture where those who aspire to represent the party and to govern will be encouraged to engage, members of the party and sell their ideas, their aspirations. And
but how does the 100 million naira, how does that help in the engagement? How does it in any way help in the engagement with members? I mean, I really can't reconcile that.
No, what I mean is this, that we have over 45 million members. Everywhere else in the world, the culture is that if you're running for office, you go to your members, the party base, the base of the party. You go to them to solicit their support, even at that primary level, to solicit their support for your aspiration. When Obama, for instance, when President Obama began to, had his aspiration to run for that office, I don't believe he had, hundreds of millions of dollars, in his bank account. This is not a suggestion that those who govern must have this kind of money with them. But, they have members who support them. They have friends who support them. They have even people, within the electorate who may support them.
Are you in any way, are you by any chance suggesting that, look, these people will definitely be able to find the money, they will be able to get friends to provide the money for them to buy the nomination forms? What about those who don't about those who don't have rich friends that could support them to buy these nomination forms? Look, and they've got very wonderful ideas.
I've said, no, hang on a second. I've said nothing about rich friends. I'm emphasizing the base of the party to begin with.
Okay.
And those who are friends who may support them. Now listen, this is not, 45 million members of the party. If every member, even a quarter or half of those members make a contribution of, even if it's 1 naira or 5 naira, which quite frankly, look, let's be realistic here. Even some of our people who, I have people, whether in my family and elsewhere, who also live, just eke out a living. But if any one of them means to give you 1 naira as donation, they will be able to give you 1 naira as donation. Now, that's my first point. There are other reasons why this fee structure we feel that is justified. For example, we are a political party. We do not have any statutory sources of funding to conduct the business of the party. We're just about, beginning the process for our primaries, which will lead us to the general election. These activities cost money. We do not have any budgetary allocation anywhere.
And this is where the problem is.
Let me finish my thought, please. Before you come in, just one moment. Now, traditionally, historically, people go to elected officials within the party to support the party. And this creates a lot of dependency between these other actors and the party. Now, we all argue for autonomy for the local government, for the judiciary, and for other institutions. But when it comes to the political parties, like the APC, we expect that the party will just conduct activities without funding. Now, let me say quickly that the money we're talking about, don't forget that a huge chunk of this money is going to go back to support the candidates of the party. These parties need to pay party agents. They need to finance and fund logistics for moving materials, moving people to different parts of this country. It costs money. There's no budget anywhere that is voted for this.
I understand.
So where do you expect these parties to actually get money? So look, we need to be realistic when we frame this conversation. So that we don't make it look like somebody sitting somewhere asking for 100 million naira for presidential forms, and that it's not something that is even at all has any valid reason or justification. We need to frame the arguments properly.
I understand your point perfectly well, but then you just said your party has about 45 million members. The question is, if those 45 million members now were like dues paying members, for instance, you wouldn't be having this kind of problem. And the problem is that when you put it, it's true that the party needs money to run elections. But the problem is when you put your nomination form at 100 million naira, you're literally telling your party members that it's, that ticket is only meant for the money bags. Because
no, that is not, look, please, that's not accurate. As we made this announcement, I made the announcements of the decisions of NEC on this matter. I made it clear. We have special constituencies, women, people living with disabilities, and our youth. Now, women where the guideline is that women are going to purchase the expression of interest forms, which is far less than the nomination forms. But we are giving them nomination forms for free. The party is handing these forms to them for free. They are a special category, and we have made decisions that I think will make it easier for them to run and to encourage them to run, for that matter. People living with disabilities, the same goes for them. Now, when it comes to our youth, yes, they are buying the expression of interest forms, but they are also getting 50% discount on the nomination forms. Now, these are 2 or 3 special categories, and we have given very special considerations. Now, for the rest of the population, now let me even ask this question. Is there anyone for example, by now, many of us have an idea of our members who have expressed interest to run for that office of president. We have an idea of those who have come out publicly. You and I know, who they are. Now, many of them were in that room, and made the decision to roll out this fee structure. They approved this. So, quite frankly, I don't think
yes, you're quite right. They may approve this, but they may approve this. You're right. But the truth is that there are actually some out there too who actually want to run and who cannot afford this 100 million naira. Obviously, some of the aspirants who have expressed interest in your ticket are obviously very rich. They're very rich and can afford it. But the truth is, there are quite a number of people who are equally good, have ideas, actually want to run, but they cannot afford. And I'm not talking about just women. I'm talking about men too. I'm not talking about just people who are disabled. I'm talking about people who are abled. I'm talking about people who are men, for instance, who want to run, but just can't afford this 100 million naira.
Look, our youth, I just said, our youth who are between 25 and 40 years, have received very special consideration.
50%, and 50% is
yes.
will bring it down to 50 million, for instance, for the presidency. And if you ask me, I think that is still very high.
Look, you know, when you aspire to run for the highest office in the land, you know, and seek platform, you know, there's nowhere in the world where that is cheap. Now, the only reason we're having this conversation is that we don't have what other countries have in terms of, you know, institutional resources. In other countries, people have political PACs where you have, you know, PACs where people, whether they're business people, support this sort of, you know, expenditures. We don't have that yet. But, you know, even when we have that, even those who have it, they still make those contributions. And those expenditures are not cheap. Now, we're talking at individual levels. That's why it looks like, you know, we are having a very... Otherwise, if you go out of this country to even some of our other African countries, they have political, you know, PACs where, you know, people who support the party put money that is used to make, you know, some of these payments on behalf of those they support. They put money behind them to encourage them to run, so that, you know, if I want to run and I don't have the money to pay, there are people who believe in my ideas, who share my vision and my aspiration, who are willing to put their money where their mouth is in support of my, you know, aspiration. Now, we will get there, but for right now, I think that we need to also understand that APC, you know, we've had our own experiences. Just in the last couple of days, I read statements credited to the national chairman of the PDP, again making the same remarks about, you know, the cost of our farms. Now, part of what is going on is that he is unhappy because this fee structure actually defeats or makes it a bit difficult and inconvenient for them in the PDP to sponsor a lot of, you know, troublemakers to, you know, purchase our farms and come to our primaries to make trouble, which is some of the plans they have. So we are also, you know, being guided and making sure that, you know, our primaries, you know, have integrity, and people who are true members of the party come forward to compete, to get our tickets and to represent this party at the general election. So I think that if you look at all of the factors, you know, that are at play here, again, as I said at the beginning, we feel quite, you know, justified that this is, yes, it sounds like, you know, I mean, a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, you know, I admit, within the context of, you know, the everyday Nigerian. But, you know, I think that we're talking here about those who aspire to lead this country, to govern at the highest levels. And like I said, many of them, you know, were in that room where our neck, the neck of this party, yes, met and took these decisions. And, you know, they also voted in support of these decisions. Yes. Otherwise, we won't have the scale we have as of today. Yes, and
the many of them are, of course, are money bags, and that's just it. They are money bags.
Well, it is you who said that.
They can actually afford it. And just before I go, let me quickly ask you this: what have you got to say to those who say, look, what sense does it make, for instance, to ask somebody to buy a form for 100 million naira to do a job that probably doesn't pay that much? So that what you may be asking, what you're asking for eventually is that, look, you're asking people to make an investment, and that at the end of the day, these people will definitely want to reap their investment, and that this encourages corruption, however you look at it. I mean, no. How do you respond to that?
No, first of all, that's a gross misconception, because, you know, you assume that there's a direct correlation between, for example, the, you know, cost of nomination forms and the penchant or the tendency to be corrupt,
reason,
you know, when in office.
Sorry. Let me just
ask a question. Can I finish? No, okay. Let me finish, please. You can follow up with your question, but you ask a question. Let me answer you. You know, the tendency to be corrupt or to, you know, steal public resources has no direct correlation with the cost of nomination forms. Now, back in the day, in 1999, in 2003, in 2007, 2011, 2015. These forms were not anywhere near the figures we're discussing today. But in those era, people still, you know, stole public funds. So what is the point? Those who will steal public funds whether they get the form for free or they pay 100 million naira. And by the way, why is it to be assumed that the reason people seek to serve in the highest office in the land has to do with the salary to that office? Some people, some of these citizens who aspire to that office are accomplished, individuals who have done well for themselves. Now, the money, the salary is not the reason they seek the office. They want to serve. They believe they have some contribution to make to their country in service. So the prestige and the opportunity to serve your country sometimes trumps the incentive of financial, emoluments or salaries for that office. So I think we get this wrong. Many of those citizens today who aspire, even not just in APC, but also in the opposition parties, some of them are individuals who have done well for themselves. So you think that the salary of president is what they're coming to earn? That is the incentive for them to actually run for office? I don't think so. I don't agree.
Well, I just hope this is not a case of, the ruling party displaying arrogance because it is the ruling party. I wonder what the situation would have been if you were in the opposition. I'm dead sure your phone will not be this expensive. Just like the PDP, which is the opposition party now, is selling its phone cheaper than yours.
The PDP is entitled. I can't discuss how the PDP, made their own decisions. I can only speak for my party. All I'm saying is that based on all the points I've made to you, I don't think that some of the discussions. But look, the only thing I am willing to, I completely agree. For the everyday Nigerian, for people who think of 100 million is a lot of money any day, any time. I mean, that's for sure. If you give me 100 million naira, I'm going to jump 20 million times in celebration. Yes, that is true. But at the same time, you must take that within the context of what this money is intended to do. Like I said, those who make this contribution, if any one of them should win in any of those categories, primaries, they will also, this money will be going back to them to fund their campaign, to fund party activities on their behalf. So actually, another way to think about this is that this money is going into escrow for and on behalf of the people who are contributing this money at our primaries.
All right, I hear you. Felix Moka.
I know you hear me loud and clear.
Loud and clear indeed, loud and clear. And thank you very much for your time, sir, and thank you for talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll take a short break now, and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DEJI360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DEJI360, dissecting the issues.